Mark Zuckerberg didn't invent social media. Let that sink in for a second. Before Facebook, there was MySpace, there was Friendster. We had forums, chat rooms, blogs, and online communities sprouting up everywhere. The idea of connecting people online, that was already old news. So, if Mark Zuckerberg didn't invent social media, what exactly did he do? He dominated it. And domination, it turns out, is far more powerful than invention. Let's go back to the beginning. Mark Zuckerberg didn't start Facebook with some grand, poetic mission to connect the world. That beautiful story came much, much later. In the beginning, he was just a highly skilled programmer at Harvard, with one incredibly dangerous trait: obsession. He wasn't out there chasing money, he wasn't pitching investors, and he definitely wasn't trying to become famous. He was just building things because he could. He was fast, efficient, and absolutely relentless. The first version of Facebook wasn't beautiful, it wasn't perfect, it barely even worked properly. But it did one thing incredibly well: it spread. And that's the first lesson that most people completely miss: growth over perfection. While other social media companies were busy polishing their features, adding bells and whistles, Facebook was just expanding. Zuckerberg understood something critical very, very early on. A social network is completely useless unless everyone you know is on it. The perfection of your product doesn't matter if nobody uses it. Your brilliant design is worthless if there's no network. And monetization, that doesn't matter one bit if you have no scale. So, Facebook ignored profits. It ignored ads. It ignored revenue for years. To traditional business minds, this looked completely stupid. Investors were confused. Critics called it reckless and unsustainable. But Zuckerberg didn't care. He had one single metric that mattered: growth. If the number of users was going up, Facebook was winning, period. And this brings us to the brutal truth of the whole operation. Facebook was never about friends, it was about attention. Zuckerberg realized that attention is the single most valuable resource on the internet. Whoever controls the attention of the masses controls influence, and whoever controls influence controls money, politics, culture, absolutely everything. You see, Facebook wasn't selling a product to its users, the users were the product. Advertisers didn't pay Facebook for cool features, they paid for direct access to human attention. And this is where Zuckerberg truly separated himself from everyone else in the game. Others were building apps. He was building a platform. Think about that difference: platform thinking versus app thinking. Apps come and go. Remember all those games on your old phone? Platforms, on the other hand, dominate entire industries. Zuckerberg didn't just want people to use Facebook. He wanted developers, businesses, media outlets, and advertisers to depend on it. That's why Facebook opened up its APIs, allowing other developers to build on top of it. That's why games like Farmville absolutely exploded on the platform, bringing millions of new users with them. That's why news outlets started optimizing their headlines specifically for Facebook shares. Once people and, more importantly, businesses started to depend on Facebook for their livelihood, leaving became almost impossible. This wasn't an accident. This was a deliberate, calculated strategy, and that strategy was powered by ruthless execution. Zuckerberg isn't known for his charisma. He's not a great public speaker. He doesn't inspire people with grand speeches. He wins with cold, hard execution. When something works, Facebook copies it. When another company threatens Facebook's dominance, it gets acquired or it gets crushed. Instagram was a threat, so Facebook bought it. WhatsApp commanded global attention, so Facebook bought it. Snapchat invented the stories feature, and suddenly, Facebook copied it and pasted it everywhere: on Instagram, on Facebook, on WhatsApp, on Messenger. People call this unethical. They call it anti-competitive, but the market calls it dominance. And history doesn't reward the nice companies. It rewards the winning companies. Another key to this dominance was ignoring short-term money. Most founders panic about revenue way too early. They need to show a profit. They need to please their early investors. Zuckerberg didn't. Facebook deliberately delayed monetization until it had massive, undeniable leverage. By the time ads were finally introduced, advertisers had no other choice. If you wanted to reach a massive audience, Facebook was unavoidable. That is true power. Money follows power, not the other way around. This is why Meta can survive endless scandals, lawsuits, and waves of public outrage. When billions of people depend on your platform every single day, the outrage fades. But the usage doesn't. And how do they maintain that usage? The algorithm. The algorithm is Facebook's real weapon. Zuckerberg understood that what people see shapes what they believe. By controlling the news feed, Facebook controls narratives, trends, and public opinion. That's why governments are afraid of Meta. That's why media companies are completely dependent on Meta. That's why politicians pour millions into advertising on Meta. When you control the distribution of information, you don't even need to create the content yourself. Others will do it for you, for free, just for a chance to be seen. Now, we see the next chapter, the metaverse. When Zuckerberg announced he was betting the entire company's future and billions of dollars on the metaverse, critics laughed. The stock price plummeted. People called him delusional, out of touch. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Only founders who have already achieved total dominance can afford to think that far ahead. Whether the metaverse succeeds or fails is almost beside the point. The mindset is exactly the same. Own the next platform before someone else does. Zuckerberg isn't afraid of failure. He's terrified of irrelevance. So, the lesson most people want to hear is this. Mark Zuckerberg did win because he was the smartest. He didn't win because he was the nicest person in the room, and he certainly didn't win because he had the best or most original idea. He won because he understood leverage. He prioritized growth before profit. He built a platform, not just a product. He understood the value of attention before anyone else. And he chose control before comfort. Most people want success without the messy, uncomfortable business of dominance. But that's a fantasy. Zuckerberg chose dominance and he paid the price with constant criticism, immense pressure, and public scrutiny. But in return, he earned a level of power that most people can't even comprehend. The final lesson is simple: control the platform, and the money will follow. If you're building something today, whether it's content, a business, or your personal brand, ask yourself one honest question. Are you just chasing quick money? Or are you building leverage for the long term? Because Mark Zuckerberg proved one thing beyond any doubt. You don't need to invent the future. You just need to own it. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you then.